Hey everybody, Luann is on here. I see Gina's coming on, Melissa, Tiffany. Hey Veronica. Kendra's jumping in, Gina's there. Hey Gina. Um, okay, let's see. We're gonna go ahead and get this going in a second. I just want to make sure we can do co-host.
That way you can let people in.
Yeah, I have make host. How do we do co-host? I haven't done that before. Do you know, Ava?
It looks like it could just be like a setting that you just have screen share off, which would be in your like settings. Let me
Oh,
see.
multiple participants can share simultaneously. Maybe that's what we need.
Yeah, because it's just more so I can share like the slide.
Okay. So I switched that. Let's see if that'll work. Advanced.
Yes, it does. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, great. All participants. Okay. So, hello, Melissa. It's good to see your face. I haven't seen your face in so long.
I know. Good to see you too.
Yay. So I want to welcome everybody today. I think this is such a great time of year for us to start kind of trying and thinking about new marketing strategies. We've gotten a lot of new members in EveryStem. And I think everybody wants to kind of still, just February 1st today. So everybody is just really thinking about like, how can I make 2024 the best year? What can I do to kind of move forward in my business? And, we're all pretty much everybody on here that I can see is a member of EveryStem. So thank you guys for continuing to be members of EveryStem and use the software to make your flower ordering and your back-end processes easier. But I also want to be um, a good supporter of you guys thinking about how things like that can tie into your marketing and the way you do social media and the way you run your business overall. It all ties together. So even though I am the person who you come to for your software questions, or we talk about business or the back end of flower ordering and kind of designing and things like that, I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about how you can use a lot of what you're already doing as a florist, the weddings you're doing, the work you're doing to kind of attract clients, and really move that from a social media platform as your main source and go over to making that something that comes from your website that you have control over. One of the things I first learned when I started EveryStem is that, having your own website and having all of your content on there is really a valuable thing, because if Instagram went away or Facebook went away at some point, we don't have control over that. So I have been a fan of Ava and the Bee for a very long time. I first started learning about online marketing when I was thinking about kind of getting more into EveryStem, because when I had my flower shop, I didn't do a ton of online marketing. I did have a blog and I did do some of that stuff, but I wasn't sophisticated with it. I didn't really know how to really make the most of it. And so when Adrienna decided to kind of do a collaboration with us and was willing to share some information about how she helps all of her clients, and the fact that she is a past wedding pro herself, that she has experience in that field from her previous life, that it just makes so much sense. Because I think all of us as florists, we feel like when another florist is doing something to make our lives better, it just makes more sense. It comes from a genuine place. I've heard a lot of people talk about that with me, with EveryStem. They're like, you're a florist, and we can tell that this was made by a florist for florists. And so Adrienna is the same way with her online marketing agency, Ava and the Bee. So I'm going to go ahead and let her take it away. She's going to teach us all about blogging today. There is a blog on our EveryStem website that she just guest wrote for us, and it's about starting a blog. So I highly recommend, if you haven't read that yet, to go ahead. It's in an email that I just sent y'all the other day, or you can go to everystem.com/blog and it'll be the top blog. That's going to give you a good framework for starting. And then we're going to get into a little bit more about some of the details of how it's going to work and how you're going to be able to use it in lots of different ways. So, Adrienne, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I'm gonna share my screen. We can see it.
Can everybody see that? Give us like a
Cool.
thumbs up. Yep, we get
Okay.
some head
I feel
nods.
like, you got to ask because technology is
Yes.
not our friend most days,
Yes.
right? I don't know about you guys.
We'll make sure
So,
that's working for you. And then, oh, one other thing, guys, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. And then we're going to save them kind of for the end so that Adrienna can get through all of this stuff, give us all some great information, and then we can have a conversation at the end with questions and answers. So if you have any questions as you're thinking of them, go ahead and pop them in the chat.
yeah, we'll have definitely time at the end so that way you guys can ask questions or content ideas. So, we're going to be talking a lot about how to work smarter, not harder with blogging because as a former pro myself, there's very limited hours in the day to wear all of the hats, let alone think about one more addition to your plate. So, our goal today, the blog post has a bit more of like how to get started, a little bit more foundational. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper into kind of the why, the how, the data, and then ways that we can really repurpose and use the time that we put into a blog to our advantage. So, really quick, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is I first learned the power of blogging. It was 2014. We're going to transform back. I had just opened a wedding planning, bridal boutique, and floral company. So, needless to say, we were figuring out how to Google, how to be on Google. One of my earliest Facebook memories of starting this business that Facebook reminds me every year is me saying, how do I get on the first page of Google? Like, that's literally where I started. And we quickly learned from owning our business was that SEO was a marathon and not a sprint. And something we experimented with that worked was blogging. We found that as a shop that had three different things, three different target markets, we found that consistent blogging was moving up. So we were on page 1 for Savannah Wedding Planner, page 1 for Savannah Wedding Florist, page 1 for Savannah Bridal Boutique. And it was because we were blogging. And it was something that, trust me, shocked us because we were like, what? This works? And so when I first started my business, Ava and the Bee in 2018, when I transferred out of the wedding industry and into just literally just helping friends, like Ava and the Bee started because my friends were like, how did you guys go from crickets to 7 figures? Teach me. And I was like, well, okay, sure. So when I started with what I knew best, consistent blogging strategies. I was like, we're going to start with what I know best. So this is a strategy that we've used hundreds of wedding pros. We work with florists on a daily basis. Literally just did a 6-month content guide for a florist this week. So we definitely have an understanding of how we can use these techniques. And fun fact, that is my first bridal bouquet I ever made. And you can tell the filter what year this was, but I mean, it's,
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you. That was my first one. But I'm going to talk about a little elephant in the room because I get told this every time I want to talk about blogging. They're like, Adrienna, blogging's dead. No one reads it. They're only on Instagram. It's outdated. Like, no, Adrienna, no, is pretty much what I get told. I have to spend all my time on Instagram. That's the only way I'm going to make money. Let me tell you about Izzy. Now, she's a photographer, but the reason I use this one is I think seeing a $15,000 collection off a single blog hits really good. So this client had been blogging. I've known her since 2014. She had been blogging, never using it as a strategy. So that's why today we're talking a lot about strategy because just posting a blog doesn't do anything. We tried all of these things. We eventually got her on a good, consistent blogging schedule. I've been writing for her for 6 years. And just in the last few weeks, she booked a $15,000 wedding from a single blog post. She found it on the internet. She contacted Izzy, she booked her. And this is stuff we get for florists as well and planners, but this was just like a good notice that blogging isn't dead and especially high end because a lot of things I see people is, oh, luxury clients don't read. We know for a fact they do because this is a client who obviously has a pretty decent budget if she's spending 15K. And that was her like intro budget. She ended up booking her closer to 35K at the end of the sales call. This is what consistent blogging can do. So for this client, 40 of the top 50 pages over the last couple months, blog posts, 25,000 website visits last year just on her blog. And this is a client where blogging was not a strategy before us. 45 Instagram posts repurposed. I want you to just think about how cool it would be to go on Instagram and just repurpose and not have to think about what am I going to say today. Like this is just straight up repurposing. These are all things that we can do with a really great strategy. So I want us to really consider, why do we need to care so much about our online presence outside of Instagram? And it's because our younger generations literally don't know what it's like to be that technology. I'm a millennial and I still don't even really know what it's like to be without technology. And 60% of Gen Z think digital first impressions are more important than in-person ones. So what this means is, as a consumer, and this is not just for weddings, but as a consumer overall, they are going to be looking outside of just one platform. They will look at your Instagram, but they'll also look at your Facebook. Has it been active? Maybe not. They're going to look at your website for sure. They're going to look at your blogs. They're going to look at all of these touch points, and it's going to matter to them, for a lot of them, more than when they meet you in person. And the thing is, we as a marketing company, I want your website and your blogs to sell for you. I want them to do the heavy lifting so that when they hop on a call, you're not having to start from scratch and be like, okay, this is how it works. Like, this is all the stuff, right? We really want to warm them up to that. And that's where that connection marketing really is important. They're not booking from just pretty images. A well-curated Instagram feed went a lot further a few years ago than it does now. And I know this just because we run accounts / everyone tells me the algorithm hates them. Like, that is, everybody's like, the algorithm hates me. And it's like, well, it's just changing, right? Like, it's just, everyone has an Instagram now. So where can we differentiate ourselves on a platform where we can look different? Because an Instagram feed will all look the same, but hopefully your website, your blog will not look like everybody else's, because it's very easy for them to scroll and to be like, I can't remember which florist this is. Ooh, you know. So we need to really figure out that connection, because we are going to have dozens of touch points. Like, they are going to look at dozens of pieces of us before they reach out. It's not going to be like that example of a one and done is pretty rare, in terms of, like, they probably looked at her Instagram and then they probably looked at her blog. Like, they probably did a few touch points before they decided to reach out. So we need to consider, how are we selling them? And one of the best ways that we can see that is with blogs. So back to that question of, do people really read? So your website is your handshake, but your blog is your voice. And we also know that people want vendors they can trust. And the best way we can build trust is in our brand voice and in our brand messaging, because it's all online, right? It's going to be 15 touch points before they ever hear your voice on a call. What does that voice sound like? So how it works really simply is, people are able, they're going to type in a question. So a couple is going to lurk online. They're going to look maybe for a certain venue in a city, or they're going to start looking for florists in their city. And they're going to go to Google and they're literally just going to ask a question. That's how it works. And if you provide that question, that the answer that they're looking for, they can find your blog and they can find your website. Well, if you're not blogging, you probably won't come up for that question. So for example, Savannah wedding venues, if you've never talked about that in your blogs, in your website's existence, you will never come up for that, because it's just simply you haven't talked about it yet. And a lot of times, when people say, like, oh, people aren't reading them, the thing is, at the end of the day, is someone going to read every blog you've ever written? No. They're only going to spend like 2 or 3 minutes on your website. But our goal is that it's not just about them reading it, but about them seeing your work, understanding your voice, and getting them in through other doors. We don't just want, like, your homepage to be your only entry point to your website. We want it to be all these little touch points to open up these entry points to your website. It also helps boost your SEO, which we'll talk about in a minute. And oftentimes, whenever we get clients who are like, I do have a blog strategy, I post every single week, but like no one sees it, it's for a few reasons. Typically, it's they don't have any SEO or any strategy. They just posted a few images and said, okay, there it is. We need to have some type of copy, which we talk about in that blog post. Or maybe they're not sharing it anywhere else. So just hitting publish on a blog is not the end of it, which is why later we're going to talk about what to do once we hit publish. Because at the end of the day, Google's smart. And Google says they published this blog, but they never shared it. It's not an authority. Google wants to know that your blog is an authority. But if you never share it, Google's like, oh, well, they don't it's not linked anywhere else. It doesn't matter. It kind of creates this ending point. So for a lot of our clients, we'll be like, well, have you shared it on Pinterest or Instagram or an email? And they're like, no, I've never shared it before. And that a lot of times can be a really easy fix. And I will say, it doesn't happen overnight. Blogging is an SEO strategy, and SEO takes time. Unfortunately, this is not something where I can guarantee you leads next week. I can't guarantee you anything next week because it's going to take time. But as we've seen with client results, the client didn't get 25,000 views overnight. It took time to get there, right? It took a few years of working, but when you get there and you book all the clients, then it's worth it. So it is something that putting the time in now into your business will allow you to see those benefits, or a few months from now, 6, 7, 8 months from now. So in terms of keywords, you might be wondering, okay, SEO, keywords, how does this work? So just a very simple breakdown of what SEO is, which again is a very long talk, but I'm going to keep it just really nice and simple. So SEO is simply the process of making your website visible to Google or any other search engine. We're just going to say Google because it's 98% of people use it. So all it is making your website seen. So how it works is a searcher, like I said earlier, they're going to type in a question. Best Alfredo recipe, or whatever it is. They're just going to type it in. Google, so that's a keyword. Sorry, they're going to type it in, and then that's a keyword. So we're going to talk about keywords a lot. That's what it is. A keyword is just simply what the person is searching for. So just a few words. Savannah florist, Atlanta florist, that simple. Google then gives back what it thinks you're looking for. To do this, Google literally reads your website. It does what's called indexing, which all it means is it reads your website with bots, literally little bots go out there, they read it, they put it in a folder. They say, this person does this person does that. They then open up that folder when you hit enter in the search, and it magically says, here's all the things. I mean, that's pretty much in a nutshell how it works, is it reads your website. So if you want Google to know what you do, to read it, and to constantly have it go, here's another article, you need to update it frequently. Because another thing Google wants is they rank websites on a 500-point factor. But one of the many that's important is that the website is up to date. When a website just sits there, it considers it not really relevant anymore, especially with the rise of AI, which I could talk about for days. But that is creating it to the point where there is so much new content out there on a minute-by-minute basis that Google is really thinking even deeper on, okay, the website hasn't been updated. It's probably a bad sign, right? They're probably like, ooh, okay. And the easiest way to do this, so the easiest way to do this is with blog posts. You don't have to update your website every week. You just create a few blog posts every month. And what that does is it tells Google, kind of puts you to that queue of oh, they have relevant content. They have relevant content. So your blog pretty much just becomes an additional part of your website, which is why it's a really great strategy, is again, you don't have to redo everything. You just have to create new content. And it kind of filters it in. And the thing with keywords is people often think that keywords have to be very complex. And the answer is no, we want simple. So we also want to think about what people are searching for. Couples don't know vendor terms. They don't. They're not searching fine art photographer, no matter how many of my clients are no, but they are. They're literally not. I'm sorry. They're not searching fine art wedding photographer. So they're not searching Austin floral designer. They're searching Austin wedding florist. So that's the good news. Simple is the way to go. So let's think about that in a blogging contest, because we don't want every blog to just be Austin wedding florist, right? We can't just literally have that be every single blog, because that just wouldn't make any sense. So what are some things that we can do? Well, let's think about venues. We know venues are the highest searched in your area. I will guarantee that your city venue will have 8 to 9 times more than planners and then photographers. So venues, amazing, easy peasy, because we know they need a venue, right? Let's think about breaking venues down. Maybe it's downtown Austin, hill country of Austin. We have a lot of clients in Austin. How are ways that we can kind of talk about different regions? Ceremony versus rehearsal versus reception. Those are all different blogs. Literally all of these could be individual blog posts. And then as a florist, what you do is you come at from a floral perspective. As a Austin wedding florist, these are my favorite venues. So when you're talking about the venue, you can say, as a florist, I love this venue because I'm able to hang these insane installations that no other venue lets me do. Or I love this venue because it's perfect for a Sperry tent. And when I get my hands on a Sperry tent, y'all know I'm going to do some magic. Like there's ways that you can easily like just talk about yourself while also talking about other topics. Other things could be flower trends, how to add flowers, how to choose a wedding color theme, the top months to get married in Austin. So just thinking of like the basic keyword of like Austin, Austin wedding florist, what are just like topics that you can think of? So like when you think of that word, where do you think of? And here's a few other tools to start thinking of ideas. Because the thing with coming up with content is there are like Google just tells us what to do. So the first way to find keywords and topics is just type it into Google. And that auto search means people are looking for this. Austin wedding flower preservation. If you offer it, or you have someone that you can bring in as a guest who offers it as a guest post, there you go. Wedding florist, Austin, Texas. Sorry, cheap weddings will always come up as a top one. We can just ignore those, but just know they will always be a top ranking one. But wedding venues, right? So that comes up as well. So just Google your city and what you do and see what Google auto completes, because that's literally just questions that people are asking right now. And Google's just telling you like, oh, you might need this. So that can be, again, a really easy one to get 5 or 6 topics without actually having to like brainstorm.
And could you even turn that on its head and say like why you don't want a cheap Austin wedding venue?
Yes.
My florist perspective, right? Like
100%.
flip it on its head and use that, but use it to your advantage, right?
Yes, 100%. So yeah, you can definitely utilize it in that way of like, we see DIY used a lot. So we'll flip that and be like, why you should not DIY your flowers. Like why you should not, just don't do it, please. But exactly. So you can think of, because they are searching. They will always be searching DIY wedding flowers. Like that's just the name of the world. But when you can provide that resource of explaining why you really shouldn't do it, you can become an authority and help them. Pinterest, again, I love Pinterest. Pinterest and blogging are best friends, peanut butter jelly all day long. It's really a gold mine for getting couples because what we have found is that in most cities, most vendors don't use it correctly. So while there might like our chance of getting in front of the right user is like really high, because in every city, including the major ones, there's like 10 other people doing it. So it's like we can always use this as a really strong strategy because it's not as saturated as you think it is as a strategy. But for example, Austin wedding venues, again, affordable, but you could say maybe you do. I think one of the things is maybe you do some affordable. Maybe you do. We have one client who does a la carte where the client picks it up. The whole point is that it's inexpensive. She does it in bulk. It's a big part of her business. She would want to do an affordable one because she would want them to be like, I still want flowers even on the budget. So
Yep,
again,
that's exactly what I was thinking of. The same thing. Yep.
Yeah. So keep in mind, like
grab and go kind of a thing. Yep.
Yeah. And she's in a major city and she started it in COVID and it is now a huge part of her business. Like, because again, it's like people want affordable. Austin wedding venues, outdoor, indoor, Lake Travis, small, unique. Like these are all, I know these are mostly venue, but again, it's just, that's what comes up. So that means a lot of people must be searching it, right? But just do a search and kind of see. Now, one note, so when we're thinking about it, we've picked our keywords. So let's say we're going to say our favorite venues, in Austin, and we're going to do it with a floral spin. We could maybe even call it like the best venues for floral installations or something, like whatever your thing is. Maybe it is the DIY wedding angle, but we have our keyword. We're going to start typing. We want to have that keyword in there a few times. So we do want to make sure we are typing the words like Austin wedding venues for XYZ or affordable Austin wedding venues, like whatever the keyword. We do want to have it in the post. But we don't want to stuff. What I see a lot of times is people will then have like every other sentence has it. It'll be like 22 mentions of that word. We don't need to do that. Google like gets it after just a few. So I've had a lot of clients who were like, oh, but I was told I have to just put a whole bunch of keywords at the end of it. And that like isn't a thing. So just a handful of times, that's it. Don't stress too much. As long as it's in the title, like again, you're doing when you start this strategy, I just am telling you, you are already 80 miles ahead of your competition just by implementing this, because I can almost guarantee there's only 1 or 2 people in your area doing it. So just know that even just getting started and like getting some blogs out there and not, and just getting a few keywords in there is going to put you so much further ahead of your competition just because they're not doing it yet. And when it comes to consistency, you don't have to do it every day. It's not like, social media. I would rather you post once a month or once a quarter than post 18 posts this week and then go silent for 6 months. The goal is just we want it to be like a consistent update. So even if it's just 1 a month, 12 blogs in a year, I don't want you to write, even if you write all 12, I don't want you to post all 12. I want you to just schedule them to go out every single month. So that's what it's really all about is just that consistency. Because like I said, SEO takes time, but it really does stand the test of time. Because what's great with these blogs is that client who booked that wedding, I wrote that blog like 2-3 years ago. And it's just on page 1 still. So like you can write stuff and then 6 years later get a client from it. Like 100%. So it is worth it in terms of the time. So let's talk about I made my blog. I'm very proud of my blog. But the biggest mistake, like I mentioned earlier, is that no one shares it. You do all this work, you write that blog. It is poetry, but then you just don't do anything with it, right? So what we're going to touch on in the second half is what we're going to do with it. Repurposing content extends the life, because not only does it tell Google I'm really good, it also just like tells your audience, right? It gives you content. I know the number one struggle is content. When I was in the wedding industry, like this was when Instagram was like, it wasn't just a sepia filter. Like I remember the day video came out on Instagram and we were in our bridal shop wearing dresses being like, oh my God, it's here. But then I remember that feeling of going, oh my God, do I have to post every day? Like, let our blogging do like the heavy lifting so that we're not worrying what to talk about. Every blog should be posted on the platforms, right? So Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook. We're going to dive into each one individually in a minute. And just remember, because a lot of people, usually when I say this, the question I get is, well, I don't want to just post the same thing over and over again. Your audience doesn't know. Your audience has no idea. I'm telling you, we do Instagram for clients and I could show one wedding every week for the next 6 years and not a single person would actually notice it's the same wedding. Or with just the consumers just don't notice. So it's totally fine. So especially if you're newer and you're thinking, I don't have that many weddings or that many images yet, totally fine. You can repeat content. People really they won't notice, especially if you're sharing on all these different platforms, right? Someone's not going to notice the same picture on your blog, on Instagram, on Pinterest, on Facebook. Like they'll never connect the dots. And you don't have to be on all the platforms. So while I'm about to break down a bunch of platforms, please do not think you have to be on all of them. And the reason, again, is I don't want to add more to your plate. I want this to be an easy strategy. It's going to take you time, but I don't want it to hurt. So this is where your data comes in. Where are your clients already coming in? Do you have a lot of leads on Facebook and you've just been ignoring it? Well, then maybe we should consider that. If you are blogging consistently, Pinterest. So Pinterest is a platform I only recommend if you're blogging at least twice a month because it's about fresh content. So when we have clients who want to be on Pinterest, but they don't blog, I tell them, no, just not the platform you should be on. So I just want you to look at that as like, okay, don't have to be on the platforms we're about to talk about, but think about what are the one or two that you know for sure are going to get you that type of reach. So in terms of consistency, like I said, blogs, technically 2 to 4, again, 1 a month is great. So don't worry too much. Pinterest, you don't have to pin a ton of pins. I don't know like how, like it used to be you had to pin a ton. Most of our clients that are doing the best are 4 to 8 pins a day. Like that's it. There are also automation services out there like Tailwind. A lot of the stuff you guys, you can do once a month in a batch. You can throw up a ton of pins in Tailwind once a month and just let it go. If you decide Facebook once or twice a week, again, if you decide that's a strategy for you, we have some clients who do better on Facebook than Instagram, just because their audience is just not as much on Instagram. Usually 3 posts a week with a reel is like kind of the average, but again, don't feel like you have to do it that many times. I will say Instagram stories. I think I have this in a later slide, but I'll just talk about it now for a second. Gen Z prefers Instagram stories over the feed. They don't really like the feed anymore. And it makes total sense. It's not authentic. The feed is not authentic, right? It's our most perfect version of ourselves, right? Like they want stories. They want the Instagram stories. So my suggestion is like, and we've been testing this with clients, but like engaging more on Instagram stories. Like post twice a week on your feed, but get in those stories because that's actually where they're like looking. And I would say it's not just Gen Z. It's just consumers right now. Like this is like a no age limit. It's like consumers just straight up don't want perfection right now. They're like just ready for some authenticness. Okay, so this is the matrix. It is beautiful. This is what we're about to go through each one. So the reason I show this first is I'm visual and I have to look at a graphic for me to understand anything. So our blog post, boop, 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 boop. So let's talk about, I feel like I'm talking to my cat. Let's talk about the boops. Okay. We're going to do this in 2 different buckets. We're going to do one with an educational blog post and we're going to do one with a real wedding because I feel like it's easier just to show you one of each. So an educational one is just that, most of what we were talking about before. You pick a topic, you write on it. We usually suggest 2 a quarter. Like let's say you're doing a 2 blog a month strategy. I would suggest like 1 or 2 of those being educational. If you don't have a lot of weddings because you're newer or you had a slower season, then just do all educational, totally fine. The one we're going to break down, this is I was torn on which one to talk about. This one technically is a stationery artist. The reason I have this one as stationery and the next one as a florist is because this client, we touch every facet of her business. Like I run every department of her business. So I'm able to show you a little bit more in depth. So that's right. That's why it's not a florist, but the next one is a florist. But it's really all the same. So the topic is ultimate guide to wedding signs, why you need them and how to display them. So nice, good topic. Why do I need signs? So let's talk about Instagram. The best part and one of the reasons I love educational is every paragraph should be its own post. That's what's really great is like you are breaking that down into little snippets. So this first one is a graphic we made for them, right? It's like a little carousel. It's got some pictures. The inside breaks down a few pieces. So the first one can talk about the blog. It can be a carousel. It can just be images. Doesn't matter. But again, it's just highlighting, hey, we posted. Come check it out. The second one, we're going to focus on a specific style of signage. So paragraph 2, I'm literally going in order of how we wrote the blog. Like there's no reason to mix it up. The second post we wrote for this client was, again, a picture of something talking about this style of sign. We pretty much copy and paste from Instagram. I mean, there's a little bit more strategy behind it, but For the most part, like just shorten it, right? You don't have to have a whole paragraph. Just pull out a few sentences that make the most sense and post it. Talk about number 3, we're going to talk about how to display a sign. This topic would work with florists too. I know you guys are decorating signs on a daily basis. Why don't you do a topic on how to make your wedding signage pop, how to make your wedding signage a highlight of your wedding? Because in this blog, we talk about share your favorite ways to style with flowers. Like, you know, so a lot of this connects. Talk about ways to display the sign. Highlight a few recent ones. So another thing with blogs that's really great is think about past weddings and reshare them. This is a great point of being like, oh, I did a wedding last year with a sign, and while it's not shared in the blog, I'm going to share it on Instagram because I know it's a cool picture. Like you can go back and use old content. And then share like the number 1 reason or tip. Another thing we like to pull out is just sharing a tip for couples, like a quick 2-sentence, like, you know, did you know, or wedding pro tip is how we talk about them. We're like wedding pro tip XYZ, and it's like 1 sentence with a pretty picture. Reels. So we know video is really important. And I will say, if you're a florist, anytime you are doing anything with flowers, I don't care if you are just trimming or just like experimentation, I want you to get something to put your phone on, and I want you to record yourself. Because you, like our florists have more video content the minute I told them to do that. They're like, oh, but I don't know. And I'm like, we'll speed it up. I'll put text over it. They're never going to see your face. I don't care if you don't have makeup. They just want to see you do magic. Like that's literally all they want from you is magic. But how are they supposed to know that you can make magic if you never show them you make magic? If you also get couples that are like, oh, I can do it myself, it's because they've never seen you work. And I'm not saying like, you know, go out there and sweat and like, you know, look like a mess. I'm just saying like, show that like, you can't just put a rose in a bouquet. Like that type of
So
stuff.
true. Yeah. Because I remember even before we had Instagram and things like that, the way my shop was set up was that we had the consultation area and kind of the cash register area were directly in line of sight with the back of the shop where the designers were working.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I booked a large majority of my clients' weddings because as I was meeting with them, they were watching the designers
Yeah.
back there making the designs. And they were like, she just took this bucket of nothingness and
Yep.
turned it into this fantastic, amazing thing. So if it works in person, it's going to work online as well. Yeah.
100%. In our shop, people always ask why we never had a separate floral studio. And it was because when we had people in the back working on flowers, I wanted every single person that walked in the door to watch us doing flowers. Like it was a very transparent part of our store because I was like, no, I want them to see what we do. So that way they're like, oh, I need to book you. So reels, again, we can do like a slideshow of images. You know, reels don't just have to be video. It can be slideshows of images. It doesn't just have to be you. We can really get those images in. So the first one could just be a slideshow of a whole bunch of signs that you've done or signs you've decorated. Simple. See what we've transformed. Another one could be, again, the behind the scenes of you setting up a sign, setting up, even if it's a mock-up in your studio. That's 2 pieces of content that tie into the blog that hopefully you don't, you know, doesn't take too long. We're just kind of throwing a video over some music with some text. Of course, our Instagram stories. We always recommend templates. Like template this out. If you guys eventually follow me on social media, you will notice I have templates for everything. I do not recreate the wheel. Like I just use the same stuff over and over because it works. So have an Instagram template, a story template in Canva that's blog is up, and you just switch it out with the name of it every single time. So that's an easy story. I love polls. So get them engaged. Are you having a seating chart? Are you designing your seating chart? Would you have this seating chart at your wedding? There's that little slider bar where they can like do like smileys or super hot. Like just make it fun because again, it's just engagement, right? Let them ask questions. Like maybe you have a poll or like a vote. Like what venue do you think this picture was taken at if it's like a far away, and have them vote on which one. Just like, you know, make it fun. And then, like I said, stories are making a comeback, thankfully. And then Facebook's pretty similar. You can definitely just cross post for your first bunch. Eventually, Facebook becomes a deeper strategy than just cross posting. The biggest thing to know is that if you are posting directly into Meta, you don't want to add a link with every single time. So when you post your blog 6 different times, you don't want to have a link to the blog every single time. It's just a weird Meta thing. Pinterest wants you to get off the platform. Meta wants you to never leave. So it's just like when we're doing strategy. So the first one would be similar to Instagram, an overview with a link. The second one would be what we post on Instagram, modified a tiny bit copy-wise with no hashtags, no link. We would post a gallery. So it'd be like a carousel of images. Third one, we would talk about the style. Fourth one, so see, it's like some have links, some don't. Galleries do really well. So doing like 8 or 10 images in a post perform incredibly well. And then of course, tagging other vendors because they always share it. When our clients post, their account blows up because all the other people share it. So just know that if you do Facebook, you don't have to post a link every time. And then pins. So Canva is our best friend. Just make, 5 to 10 different pins. You can go through all the images and then just make some graphic pins. So again, these are all ones we just made for this client. As you see, the wording's a little bit different. So ultimate guide, how to display, like we just took a section of the blog and made it the title of the pin because it's really what it's talking about. Throwing up some pictures and throwing them into Tailwind. So again, like posting all the images and just in Canva having some templates that you can easily swap out text and share again and again. So that's 26 pieces of content from a single blog, which is a lot better than 0 pieces of content if we don't share. And the last one we're going to touch on is a wedding. So this one she's a floral and planner. So in the real wedding, we do need to have text. A lot of times people just throw up images. We do have to have text. We typically recommend 300 words is like our minimum. So 300 words is a minimum for anything on the internet. So your website, 300 words per page or more. On a blog, 300 words. Educational, 500 to 1,000. We don't go above 1,200. Anything above 1,200 words gets broken up into multiple blog posts because consumers will not read over 1,200 words. It's just our wedding world will not. So again, couple 500 words for educational is fine. A lot of times our clients, people who like buy our blogging course or our content guides are like, oh, I ended up writing like 8 billion words once I had a topic. So this is also where you can bring in the vendors. I want you to really think about what made it unique. What did you do? And what did you do as a team as a vendor? I think a lot of times when our couples realize we have relationships with other vendors, they trust us a lot faster. So whenever we're able to shout out the planner or shout out the venue, it can help our clients feel like it's a team and not like an I point of view. So this is a romantic wedding at Elizabeth Farms in Lancaster. So captions. So the first one, have it be the couple sharing a special moment. Oh, looks like the text got hidden, but a special moment from the day or something about the decor. Totally up to you if you don't want to share couple images. Simple. We have a blog. We're sharing XYZ's wedding on the blog. Come check it out. The second one, let's focus on the wedding party. Tag the vendors, of course. And if there's gown attire, tag, because most gown designers will like straight up reshare you. They love it. So second post is just, again, breaking down the elements of the day. Instead of just doing one big carousel with all the pictures, we're just breaking it down to give you more pieces of content. Third one's a ceremony. Fourth one's a reception, maybe to include something you did that was unique, a reason why they loved it. Fifth one is where you talk about you. What did they book? Couples don't know what a package is. Like they don't know. So was it a specific package? Was there something, what did they book? What did you do for them? Because it's educating them while also showing off your work. Sixth one, color palette, mood boards, vision boards, sketches. Kill it on social for our clients. They also kill it on Pinterest. So if you are that type of designer where you I create a mood board in Canva, share it after the wedding. Like that's a whole post of itself is just share the mood board. Share it in the blog for sure. And then have the last one, talk about your client experience. So for example, the caption we wrote for this client for this prompt was, as your planner and florist, I will create a style and theme for your event that is aesthetically appealing, unique, and representative of your vision. I'll study your likes and dislikes and get to know you two as individuals and as a couple. Then I'll tie those little details into every aspect of your wedding for a design that's cohesive and uniquely you. We actually paired that with a picture of the actual person because, again, show your face. So we pulled something from the blog and then just shared the person's like face with it on like a Friday or something. And then reels before and after, if you have video, huge. Like, again, the transformation. They're not hiring a florist, they're hiring a magician. So like, how can we show the magic that goes into it? Behind the scenes, maybe it's sharing your favorite detail. Maybe it's a video of like just one piece and you're like, this was it. Or maybe it's 3 tips for having a wedding at that venue. Maybe you know it's a little difficult, or maybe you know, not like a difficult venue, but like maybe you know setting up is a little harder at this venue because it's outdoors and you have to hike them out. I don't know. Say that, right? Create a reel of the color palette. Like just lay out the flowers. Take a video of the flowers on your studio floor and like make that a reel of like the recipe for this wedding. And then there you go, a video. And then stories, like I said, stories, create one that you published it. You can create a slideshow. A lot of our clients will do a slideshow whenever the blog goes out. So 5 or 6, images back to back. You can, again, share behind the scenes. Maybe you can even just go on and show your face talking about it, being like, hey, this wedding is up on the blog. Let me tell you the #1 reason why you're going to want to look at it right now, and then link it. Facebook, similar. Outline of the wedding, just make sure we're doing link, no link, kind of bouncing it between galleries. So that way we're kind of showcasing it. And then Pinterest. So again, same idea, visually different pins, different titles, different images. We like to use a lot of mood board style pins for our designers, especially like our stationary florists, because again, people love a good color palette. So it's like, we'll like mix it up in there. And then that's more than 25. I think it was like 30 pieces of content at that point from a real wedding. So these are all different ways. And honestly, for Instagram, you could probably do like 100, but that's just like 6 solid ones that we can do. So hopefully this kind of encouraged you to think about your blogs as not just like a standalone piece, but to think about it, because you can repurpose your old content. So I don't want you to, again, think that you can never reshare old stuff. Usually for our clients, what we do, especially if we handle social, or if they do, I'm like, for every wedding, create a best of folder, and it's your brain dump of images. So when you don't know what to post on Instagram, you just pull from your best of and you just like call it a day. If you blogged before, but you took a break, go through those blogs, refresh them and reshare them. You probably have a ton of content. You probably have a lot more content already in your head that's ready to be written in a blog than you realize once you just sit down and start writing it. And then I do have a resource. So we have a course on blogging, which is, I think it's pretty cool, but we also created this yearly content guide. And what these are is don't buy blog posts and plug and play them. It doesn't work on Google. It won't rank. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So what we do is we create content guides, and what they are is it gives you a full outline. So I'm going to give you the topic. I'm going to give you title suggestions. I'm going to tell you the why, because trust me, the why is just as important. I'm going to tell you literally why does this blog matter and why you should write it. And I'm then going to give you bullet points of what to talk about. So it's like Q&A. I'm going to give you a bunch of questions. You're going to answer it, and that's how you're going to write your blog post. So that way you're not having to guess what to talk about. I'm just going to give you the questions and answers so that way you can answer it. That way it's custom to you. It's custom to your voice. Google doesn't frown upon it. And we also have it organized seasonally. So it literally gives you 2 educational blogs a month for the next year, like in order of how you should straight up do it. And you have exclusive, it's $147, but it's only $97 for you guys. And every single time someone buys one, they DM me a week later and they send me their first blog, and it's always so cool. So questions now.
That's so great. Thank you very much. So I think something that I find really interesting about this whole conversation that we just had, and as people have questions, pop them in the chat, or we can unmute if anybody wants to ask. But what's really interesting to me is that we all overthink this process. We really sit down and we're like, well, I have to write this blog post that's going to like blow people's minds, and it has to be 2,500 words, and it has to have every, it really doesn't. And so I think with the Q&A process of like these content guides, I think it's so much better because it really enables you to come from a personalized point of view and really bring your own unique voice. And so I know one of the questions that just popped up, I think Melissa just said, can you use AI to assist? So this is the thing. AI can be great. And for example, I think Kelly was there, and I think maybe a couple other people who are on here today. Gina was there. I did a class in January that was called How to Price for a Profit. I think some of you were on there. And I really put a lot of my own personal thoughts and ideas into there, but I used ChatGPT to create the outline for that. I had like a 15 question back and forth with ChatGPT, and it spit out this extensive outline. And then I actually trimmed it down and added a few things and changed a few things. So you can, from my opinion, and we can ask Adrienna about what she thinks about this, but you can use AI, but the whole point of a blog is to differentiate your business from other businesses. So don't use AI to the point where you're not putting your own spin on it. Like you're doing a wedding and you're going over to the Allen House, and the Allen House has this beautiful bay window, and you've never gotten to decorate this bay window the way you've gotten to decorate it for this wedding. Like the way your passion comes through about your work is what's going to draw those clients to you. So don't let AI like take that over, because one of the points of having a blog is to really personalize it so that they understand why they want to choose you as their florist.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think AI is incredible for ideas, outlines, content, but if we just copy and paste it, it doesn't sound like you, because it's not like it literally. And I think we have to also consider, and something we're looking at from an SEO perspective, is Google is really trying to figure out how to combat AI, because they don't want that much duplicate content, because AI is just regurgitating what's already on the internet. It's not technically new. So Google is getting to the point where they are really having credibility and an individual voice. Like it's starting to get to the point where they are going to get so good that they will know ChatGPT spit it out word for word. Like we will get there probably within a year. So 100% outlines, topics. We use it all the time for like content creation and ideas, but then we rewrite it. But it's a good, like you said, outline. And I know someone mentioned slides. I can send you all the slides too, so that way you have like the slides as well at the end. I can send it to you, Luann. So
that'd be great. And then we can go ahead and add it. We'll do a replay for this, guys, and then we'll add the slides, and I'll also send you the code to get the templates. And we'll make sure you guys get everything and you can get in touch. So let's see, there are a couple questions in here, and I know a couple of them were answered, but let's go back kind of to the beginning and just make sure we're getting everybody's questions. So Rachel said she totally agrees on Instagram stories. And I think that's super important just to go back. I know I don't love showing my face on Instagram stories. It's not something I do a lot, but I can tell you that I have several EveryStem members who use Instagram stories. They've started in the last year, and their following and their like kind of engagement with their audience has skyrocketed. So
yes,
we should all listen to our own advice and do it more. But yeah, Instagram stories definitely kind of popping up there. So if anybody's looking for a way to just casually be on there, just when you're making a boutonniere, you're making a bouquet, set up your your phone, take a little video, pop it on Instagram stories. You don't have to show your face. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. Just make it simple.
And what's really great with that is consistency. So if you follow me on social media, I post a picture of my breakfast every day. I've had the same breakfast since 2010. I don't want to talk about my problems, but I have, okay, straight up. I started 2 years ago posting it every day, mostly to become a Pepperidge Farm influencer. Hasn't happened. But what actually happened was I gained over 1,000 followers in a year. And it's because I posted every single day a picture of my toast. And it doesn't have to be you. Like it can literally just be like your coffee every morning. And you just make a list of what you're doing that day. And that's it. And that's like all you have to do once a day.
I've seen your last, however many 5 or whatever in the past, week or so. And I've been like, damn, she's good. I need to do something like that.
It's just a piece of toast. There's nothing. My face is not shown. You don't see
Yeah.
my face almost any day on social, but
There is that level of a little bit more intimate connection. Like, okay, this is what this person is being vulnerable enough to tell us what she's doing throughout the course of her day.
exactly. And your
it
couples want
also
that.
keeps you accountable in a way. It's like, these are the things I'm telling people I'm doing, so I guess I better go ahead and do them, right?
Yeah, because then they'll be like, wait, you didn't post your coffee yesterday. What's wrong? And you're like, no.
So let's see. We talked about the AI question. We talked about how many words need to be in a blog post. If anybody has questions about that, it's in the chat. I kind of went down what Adrienna was saying, and a minimum of 300 words, 500 to 1,000 words for like an educational blog post, and then try not to go over 1,200 words.
Yeah, like 12 to 1,500, just because at that point, then it's probably something that you can break down. And again, it's like easier just to have 2 blogs than one. Does the work for you.
And then another question from, let's see, share the slides. What advice do you have for someone who's not a good writer?
I love this question because I used to hate blogging as a business owner. I hated it more than anything. So it's funny that I do it for a living.
You've learned to love it.
Yeah, now I love it, but I would reframe it as it's not that you're not a good writer, it's just that you haven't gotten into the groove yet. Because at the end of the day, you are a good writer. You just haven't gotten into that process or that mindset yet. So I think a lot of times with writing, we get overwhelmed because it's like we're being seen. We're being seen on a slightly different level. What if no one likes it? I mean, I would say just start with a few blogs that you feel passionate about. I don't care if the topic honestly has nothing to do with SEO. I don't care. Write something that you're passionate about. And when you start with a few posts that are just because you want to talk about it, it will feel easier, because I think a lot of times the reason we don't think we're a good writer is we just get nervous when we start. So it's like once you're able to just like take that first step and get that first couple written, we feel so much less overwhelmed because we've done it, right? We've hit publish. And that's usually what I suggest when people are like, I'm not a good writer. And then I read it and I'm like, no, you're a great writer. You just you just felt maybe a little overwhelmed about the tension of it. But definitely start with topics that you care about and you'll want to talk about it more.
Yeah, I would add to what Ava just said. I would say when I first started blogging for my flower shop, it was, early on, like blogs were kind of a thing, but Instagram didn't exist yet, and so I just kind of tell the story of the couple, talk about what we did, talk about the venue. But then after I sold my flower shop and I started EveryStem, I started a blog called the Profitable Floral Design blog, which has now become the EveryStem blog, because I wasn't sure. I didn't know I was going to create a software for florists. I was not there yet. And so I started writing. And from then, that was about 3.5 years ago to now, it's so much easier for me to write because it's a habit of mine and I do it a lot. And I do it on Instagram a lot. And I'm trying, this year is my year of switching from all this great content I'm putting on Instagram to putting it on my own blog and then repurposing it to Instagram, which is one of the reasons that I think this is such a great topic, because this is stuff that I'm learning from too, and I think it's really important for us to kind of understand, like, feeling overwhelmed. I know Melissa's saying that she feels overwhelmed with blogging. She started in October and she has not posted since then because she's overthinking it.
I get it.
And I think just writing down, like Melissa, you have so many great weddings. You guys have so many things going on in your shop and you have so much happening, you know, that it is probably a lot for you because you're just managing. Melissa has a pretty big business, pretty big floral design business. So, you know, that might be something you need to consider outsourcing if you're feeling really overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, that was my second question because I don't, I know intellectually I can do this, but I just don't know if I can do it as well as someone like you. I mean, first of all, Luann, thank you for doing this. And Adriana, thank you for this. This is so amazing. And it was like right on time because I was getting ready to finally like post on their blog this week. But it's like paralysis, like analysis paralysis, whatever the word is, because I cannot, I'm doing the Instagram, I'm trying to figure out all these different things, the Pinterest, all, and it's just so overwhelming that I want to do it right and I want to be most effective. And I'm just wondering if this is the moment where you just say, okay, I can't do this. I had someone who I talked to about doing my Instagram, and I had to struggle with that because I feel like it's really hard to turn that over to someone else because for a lot of different reasons. But with the blogging, I see it as a little bit easier to turn over. I don't know. I'm just struggling with, what part of this do I just outsource? What makes sense?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts because the reason I have a business is for people when they get to the stage where you're at. Like the reason I am able to, run a business is because there gets a point in every vendor's career where they have so many hats on, they start falling off because like we can only get so high up with our hats. So it sounds like, yes, you're a really good candidate for outsourcing it because it sounds, and I will say when it comes to Instagram. So the number one thing that people come to me as a marketing person is Instagram. I will tell you right now, my inbox, 6 inquiries today, Instagram, Instagram, Instagram. They don't actually need Instagram because A, it is the hardest to let go. I get that. And B, when you have someone taking care of everything else, they never actually end up wanting Instagram. So it's one of those things where we don't even usually offer right away. I tell them, you know what? Let's have you control that. Let me take over the blogging, the Pinterest, the strategy, the funnels, the blah, 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 blah. Let me do that. Come back to me in 3 months. And honestly, very rarely do they come back and say, I want Instagram. Some do. Some are like, yes. And at that point, though, when they come back to me, they are so trusting that they are like, I literally just take it. Take the wheel. And that's when I want to work with someone. I don't want to take something from someone that they're like, oh, I just, I feel like I could do it, but I don't know. I want to work on the other stuff that you're not wanting to. So that way, in 3 or 6 months, you can decide, yes, Adriana or whoever, it doesn't have to be me, whoever you're outsourcing to, you can confidently give them your login and say, peace out. I don't, so that's like how we structure it. Because a lot of people will kind of fight back. They'll be like, well, why won't you do my Instagram? And I'm like, because you still actually want it. And that's totally fine. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, let me take care of all the other things you don't want to do. And then it will ease up 20 hours a week for you. And then you'll want to do Instagram again. So a lot of times our clients come back and they're like, so I actually don't hate Instagram anymore. And I'm like, good. That's great. Like, that's all I want. And if you still hate it, that's good. So whoever you outsource to, like, that's usually what we recommend is like, start with the items that you definitely feel like you are ready for. And then you can add on stuff later too. Like it can continue later.
For sure. And Melissa, have you tried, I don't know, we haven't talked in a while, but have you tried like kind of time blocking or day blocking? I know you have a lot going on all at once, but have you tried that to start with the blog at all?
I have not. And in 2024, I mean, it's one of those things that I started doing that, but because I have the flower shop and then I have the wedding business, which is growing, big and
Big time,
going
yeah.
through all kinds of transitions.
Mhm.
Even though I have it in my calendar, something else inevitably comes up. So that just gets moved to the next day or the next week. I mean, that's my issue. So I almost feel like so that I don't keep pushing it off and overthinking it and, coming up with a million reasons why I can't press send on my blog, that I should outsource it. I'm not outsourcing anything right now when it comes to social media or blogging or anything like that. And I'm finding like I just started the new website in August for Seven Blooms, and I also have the website for the flower shop. And with Seven Blooms, like it's a new website. There's so much opportunity to like really do stuff because it's brand new. But I feel like it's stagnant because, like I said, the first and last time I posted a blog was in October, and we launched our new website in August. So you can see, like, my struggle is just that I'm missing out on all these opportunities because I'm trying to manage all this other stuff. And even when I say I'm going to do this, something comes up, something blows up, and then I just push it off.
Well,
you're
I
in
would say
Philly.
you're at that point. Yeah, you're at that point where it's time to start outsourcing for sure, because I can see that from where you were when we first met and you started using EveryStem to now, like, your business has grown. And I think it's hard as a small business owner. Like, I'm kind of at that same point here too. Like, I'm, with EveryStem, it's like, okay, things are starting to grow. We have opportunity. It's starting to get traction. People love it. And I'm only one person. Right. And you're only one person. So for people like us, Adrienna has created a business that will serve this whole thing for you. And whether it's her or someone else, it's that opportunity to say, okay, I'm just going to give this a chance, whatever the time frame is, give it an opportunity to work for me. And then, like, I think a lot of times when we do that, we do open ourselves up to then be able to do more of the things that we really need to do. Like, a blog is important, yes, but if you can find someone who's really good at what they do and hire them to do it, it's not a thing where if you personally, as the CEO of the company, don't do it, it's going to be a problem,
Yeah, 100%. I see that now. Like, I love this. This is amazing.
I just moved to the Philadelphia area. I'm in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
Oh,
I'm on the New Jersey side. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So we're right over the bridge.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I saw your website and I was like, oh, hey.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, I don't want to monopolize, but no, I'm super excited to contact you afterwards because I think that this is a go for me, for sure.
Awesome. Connecting, I think because we're all small business owners, like, it's funny because I have a lot of people who are like, they'll reach out to me and they'll be like, oh, well, why don't you have this? Or why don't you do this? Or what? And I'm like, well, I'm a small business owner, just like all of you, and so is Ava. Like, we're all just trying to figure it out as we go along, like, we're not running giant corporations of hundreds of people, So it's like this whole connection of kind of saying, like, we're all kind of working to kind of figure it out as we go and help each other is wonderful. And one of the things that Rachel just mentioned on the chat is finding the right fit or person to outsource to isn't always easy. And she says, mainly because not a lot of people understand the floristry industry and your business and its voice. So that is, you don't want to just outsource, you don't want to just go on Fiverr and say, hey, somebody write me a blog, right? There are people who are really connected within this industry. And, if you ever have a question and you guys need someone or a resource, ask me. I try to seek out people like Adrienna who obviously have the skill and the right tools and the right team to help you guys, and they know what they're doing. It's not just a random person that you're hiring off the internet that you hope is going to do the job, So if you ever have something like that where you're like, I need help or I need resources, like, that's one of the things that I want to try to help build within our community and why I have these calls and everything like that. So, don't be afraid to ask, for things like that, because I want to make sure that everybody's getting what they need. And sometimes sorting through that, even like for Rachel, who's a VA, she's in on the other side in the UK, but she's helped some of our EveryStem members and works with them. And she does great work. She does some marketing, online blogging and stuff like that. And so you want to find somebody who connects with you, who understands your industry. I've had a couple people who I've talked to about, doing things, and it's like, well, you do feel that little bit of like uneasiness if they don't really understand, because floristry and weddings are a very unique niche. So, just kind of make sure you vet the person, I think is what Rachel's, kind of saying, making sure we're all good on that. And then let me see.
Yeah, for sure. And then when it comes to the voice, I will say one thing that because another question we get is like, how you sound like me is A, we're pretty good writers at this point, but B, if you don't have a solid brand voice or solid copywriting,
Mhm.
that needs to come before you start a blogging strategy. Because if you don't have a solid brand voice, then there's no way anyone can sound like you. So sometimes it's like we have to do that step before you invest in a blog. Because I don't want you to invest in something and then it like just doesn't work,
Yeah, and I think several people are agreeing, like, as we're growing and we're getting from the point of like, okay, we're a new business, we're getting out there, we're getting known, we're booking clients, we're trying to find, there's going to come a point of like, this kind of like awkward growth period where, maybe your inquiries dip a little bit. And it
Mhm.
seems counterintuitive, but I've had this just recently with one of my friends who lives here in Austin. She did a really big rebrand and she got really deep into what she is, who she wants to serve. And she kind of shared all that and she expected to just kind of go up this level like immediately. And what happened was she had this little dip or this little lull. And then now it's starting to pick back up maybe 3 months later. So our growth, if I look at the growth of EveryStem as far as like membership, it is not a solid straight line, right? There's some ups, a little downs, a little ups, a little down, but then overall, over the long term, there is that nice kind of solid growth. So
Yeah.
this is one of those foundational strategies, no matter what point you are at in your business, whether you are brand new, you are getting to that growth period, like Melissa and Hannah, you're kind of starting to really get into the nitty gritty of like, hey, how do I get all this done because I'm just wearing too many hats? Or you're even further along and you're like a really established, veteran florist. This strategy of blogging and then repurposing what you're putting on a blog on a regular, consistent basis is a foundational winning strategy. Like that, no matter where you are in your business, it works. And I believe that because I think, it's really important to make sure that everybody understands it's not just for people who are like where Melissa is, where she's got a retail shop and a wedding shop and all that. This can work if you're a newer designer too.
Yeah, that one the real client blog that we did, brand new website we built for her. Like literally that was blog number 6 we wrote for her. So like brand new. And within 6 months, she was ranking on page 1 for her main keyword, outranking her competitors who had been doing it for 30 years. And it was because her competitors weren't blogging yet. So it's definitely like that was an example of like, yeah, brand new. Literally, she had been working as a freelancer for the last decade and was like, I'm going to do it by myself. And then she was like, wait,
Because Google
how do
wants
I
that
do
fresh
this by
content.
myself?
Google wants to be fed. We have to keep
Yeah.
feeding this monster that we created, So one of the things that I know that you said, I don't think anybody asked this question, but there's 2 things that I thought about when Adrienna was going through the slides. And the first thing is when you talked about Pinterest, I think there's a really important point. If you don't have fresh URLs, which is like a new blog post, and you keep putting the same main website URL into Pinterest, it doesn't really love that. So you want to create a blog before you start putting pins on Pinterest, because Pinterest wants a new link. They don't want you to keep using your same link over and over again. So that's kind of just a thing that I learned fairly recently. And I just wanted to share with everybody because that's one of the things they consider like a spammy kind of thing if you keep using that same
And
link.
if they mark you as spam, your domain will never be able to live there again. Like they straight up ban you. So yeah, so like your homepage, actually anything pinned from your homepage and typically like your main services page will never actually see traction because the platform automatically is like, no, this isn't actually fresh. It's just a homepage. So yeah, we definitely want to make sure like the URLs and all of that before we do Pinterest as like a strategy.
Yeah. And then the other thing was we were talking about, sharing things about vendors and venues. And I think one of the important things that I've learned is as a community of venue, if you're on a venue like preferred venue list and you work with certain venues regularly, or you're trying to get in and start working with a certain venue, when you do a blog post, you can have that venue or that photographer or that baker or whoever you're working with create a backlink. And so you guys can then start helping each other and promoting each other. So they can go on their website, on their next blog and say, I worked at this venue, or I did an open house with this venue. And this florist wrote this beautiful blog about this experience they had. And then they can link to your blog. So when you start doing stuff like that, then you're communicating, you're building relationships with the vendors, you're building relationships with the venues, and you're getting kind of higher on Google because you're creating these links to each other's pages. So that's another really good kind of beneficial bonus to building those relationships, I think.
Yeah,
What
for
if the
sure.
venues don't have, what if they're not blogging, or the people that you're linking to are not blogging? Does that matter? Like,
That's a good question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it does matter because it's creating a web. So Google is like taking all of their files and creating a giant spider web. So like in the Philadelphia area, it will recognize, even if that venue has never blogged in their life, it will recognize that you are at it frequently.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a giant spider web. So it does, even if they don't have a good strategy, it's still fine for you because it's still giving like that reciprocation between websites.
Still kind of boosting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And if they can't do that, I mean, have them share it as an Instagram story, have them share it as an Instagram post, or ask them if they can put it on their Facebook page. Like I put a blog out, you could send a separate email to all the vendors and the venue and say, I created this blog. You guys are featured in it. Share it in any and all ways that you would like to share it, no shameless plugs, like are a good thing. Just, get it out there. The more people you can have share those things, the better.
Mhm. And they don't want to have to create more content. So like you're able to help, it's like helping each other out because they're like, well, of course I'm going to share this. I have nothing else to post today. So it's like an easy like win for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's such a great kind of mindset of like, Melissa, have you heard of the Oprah effect?
No, I have, but can you tell me what it is again?
So it's like, Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil and all these people who are really famous, they're famous because they went on Oprah.
Mhm.
And the reason they're so famous is because Oprah is trusted and loved by her entire audience. And anyone she shares anything with is going to get that boost. So it's kind of like if there's a really, like I do this with my friend Allison Ellis. She runs realflowerbusiness.com and she uses EveryStem and she has a huge audience. And EveryStem works with her flower math and all the coaching that she does for florists. And so when I first started EveryStem, I was like, hey, friend, with all these people who really has, and she's always supported me and she's shared things on her blog and she's shared things on her YouTube and, on her Instagram. And that way it's like you're kind of getting that, you're helping each other out, you're offering synergistic things and you're sharing, you don't want to just glom on to somebody, but you want to say like, what can I do? How can I partner with some of these people that I'd really like to work with? Or how can I create this partnership marketing like relationship and kind of build on that? Because that can be a really great way to kind of like continue to get out there. Like with the wedding business, what's the biggest wedding dress shop? What's the biggest, cake baker? What's the big, can you go into those people and say, hey, we're now really focusing on weddings. We're driving our wedding business. We'd love to feature you. Could I have someone come in and do a little interview with you and put it on my blog? Like there are all kinds of different things you can do with that. And so I think it's just like being willing to kind of put yourself out there a little bit from like if you're doing it yourself. But if you have someone outsourcing it for you, then you don't even have to think about that.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, game changer, game changer.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions, or y'all can unmute if you have a question? I don't see anything new in the chat. Oh, one question for you. Let's see. Are your prices listed on your website, Ava?
So our pricing, the thing with it, everything's custom. So like, I don't like, none of our clients are all in the same exact package.
Because it's all different. Okay.
Because it's all like everything's different, but for price reference, blogs are 300. They start at $300 each.
Okay.
Usually it's 2 a month as a minimum, just to give you a general idea. So yeah, like $300 a blog. Pinterest starts around 600, things like that. So I can give you like all of that pricing, but it is just since every package is customized, it's like some clients spend 1,500 a month, and I have some clients spending like $4,000 a month because they are so robust. But if you just inquire, I can send you packaging and pricing, because like I said, it's a very big range of our monthly. I don't want to tell you it's a $4,000 package when like it really might not be a $4,000
just blogs, or if you want Pinterest.
Yeah, like everything is customized. We do have flat pricing for like the individual items. So like I said, blogs start at 300, newsletters start at 225 each, things like that.
Okay, great.
And then we build it for you, because everybody's a little different.
Awesome. Yeah, that's perfect. And for the Pinterest, I've been doing some Pinterest stuff, and I would say that pricing is very fair. So just to give you
definitely in like the industry, we're gonna be more expensive, but that's also because we've trained people. So if you can't afford our services, not a problem. I have hundreds of people I can refer you to that I have trained to do what I do. Through courses I have that are less because they've been doing it as long. So it's like that caveat of like, you won't have to train me, you might have to train them, but it would be half the price. So totally, everybody has different priorities in their business. So
sure. And then Hannah just asked a question. We're mentioning making pins on Canva. And what is a pin, and where are you putting it?
Okay, without spending an hour talking about Pinterest. So Pinterest, so when you log into Pinterest and you see the individual
little
pieces,
thumbnail,
those are called pins. So every picture is a pin. So when we're creating those graphic ones you saw, we're doing those in Canva. And then what we're doing is we're pinning them to the platform. The way we actually do that is through a third-party tool called Tailwind. So we actually put it on Tailwind. Tailwind puts it on Pinterest. The reason for that is the consistency. You could not pay me enough to sit there and pin every 2.5 hours. Like, we're not going to do that. We're going to use a tool that does that for us. So you feed Tailwind, then it's like Planoly. If you have Planoly or any Instagram tool, it's the same thing. You plug it in, you tell it what to say when it gets posted, like the caption, and then it posts it for you. And so that's what the pin is. The pin is just a piece of image, whether it's a graphic or a photo or a video, that you associate. So you tell Pinterest, like on Instagram, you tell them what the caption is and you tell them the link it goes to. And then Pinterest, it's where it lives, isn't on Pinterest. And the thing with Pinterest, which is great, is that it wants people to jump off the platform. It's not a social media. Pinterest is SEO. It's one of the biggest search engines in the world. I believe it's number 3, behind Google and YouTube. So it's a search engine. So it's just feeding the machine URLs in a visual format. Does that make sense? Let me know if that explains it. It's hard without like pulling up Pinterest and showing you. But that's kind of like the gist of like what a pin is. Yeah, it's just like a piece of
says
media.
It makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
She got it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's kind of hard to like an abstract idea.
Yeah. And I think the one thing about Pinterest, I just started doing some stuff with Pinterest this year, or late last year, and I use Tailwind as well. And I think it's interesting because on Tailwind, it will tell you some suggested times to post.
Yeah, it tells you the time to post. Exactly.
Basically,
you don't have to guess.
Fill in. So if you create some different things in Canva, you have a blog post, take some of the different pictures you're using, layer some text over it, pop it into Tailwind. Tailwind will actually tell you when you should post those posts, so or those pins. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great tool. It's the one we recommend. There are others. It's the one we recommend because it has the best ROI in our opinion. Like the cost of what you pay for it versus what you get out of it, in my opinion, is just the best option out of all of them. So
it took me a little while to learn how to use it, but
Mhm.
I'm getting the hang of it, and hopefully I won't
Yeah.
have to do it myself for much longer, but it works. So there's one more question, and then we're going to let Ava go. So Sandra's asking, what is the difference between a blog and a newsletter?
Great question. There are no dumb questions. So a blog is going to live on your website. So a blog post is on your website. A newsletter is an email. So it's going to live on an email platform. So it's not going to it's going to be a totally different item. So it's an email. So when we're talking about newsletters, or if you hear the word funnel or freebie, this is kind of what they're talking about is, you send, instead of sending an individual email on Gmail where you're like one at a time, use a platform like Flowdesk and you mass send. So a newsletter would be like maybe you do a monthly one where you're sending your audience the blogs you wrote. So you're talking about these are the blogs I wrote, or you're talking about sales in your shop and things like that. It's a great strategy, especially if you have an in-person, you're not just weddings, you have an actual shop. But it is like a separate, like little world, I guess I would call it, like a whole separate strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. So just like, I don't know if any of you saw, I sent out an email yesterday and it had information about the call we were doing today. And then it had a link to the blog. And then it had like a replay for a previous thing that we did and some information about some of the new features in EveryStem. So I send something like that out to you guys about once a month. And I'm not as great as doing it exactly on the same day every month, but it's kind of a newsletter. It's taking the blog and then putting it into an email that you can then email everybody and say, hey, I wrote this new blog, click on it and read it, So it's kind of another
Outlet.
it's another repurposing of the blog in a
Oh,
way.
100%. Yeah. We do that for a lot of clients. Like that's a whole other repurposing piece is like when we get into email. Yeah. So it's like a whole nother little strategy, but a really great one if emails are a part of your marketing.
Yeah, Hannah, you might be looking at a different Tailwind. I know there are a couple different companies that are Tailwind.
Yeah, there's
I
like
can
an
send you,
SEO company. So look
yeah,
up
I can
Tailwind
send
for
you a link.
Pinterest because it's
Yeah.
technically one of the only approved by Pinterest. Like,
Okay, I was looking and I'm like, wow, these don't have great reviews. And also
oh,
the following is like 700 people, so something's going on.
oh no, yeah, it's like one of the only ones Pinterest lets you use. So
Okay.
it's like,
I
yeah,
can
it's
send you the
probably the
link. I can
website
send you the
company.
website. Yeah,
Yeah, that would
because
be
I had
awesome
that
if you could
problem
send
when
a
I
link.
first signed up too. I was like,
Yeah,
what was
I know.
doing?
Someone had told me that before. They're like Tailwind, and I was like, it's tailwindapp.com. So tailwindapp.com is the actual one we're talking about.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions or Hannah says perfect. Okay, great. Yeah. So anybody else have a question? Let's just give everybody a second. I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to come to this session today because I just love talking to all of you. It's so much fun. I like seeing everyone's face or even hearing their voices. It's nice. I sit in here on my computer all day by myself. Can you tell? All the girls that asked me to freelance this spring, they're like, Luann, can you work this week? This week? I was like, yes, yes, yes,
I
because
want
I
out of the
need to
house,
get out of the
please.
house and go
Yep.
touch some flowers and design with my friends. Like, I can't wait to get out. I'm like having a little winter fever down here in Texas.
Oh, I feel that. I freelanced for up until like last year still because I was like, I went to art school. I don't understand this online digital world. I'm like, wait, I just sit at a
Yeah.
computer all day. I went to art school. What is this? So yeah, I feel that. Like I still have to like get out there and do things because if not, I'm like, oh, cool. Just sitting in my office.
Yeah, that creative opportunity. I don't know. You just need to let that flow every once in a while.
100%.
Okay, great. Melissa, you're all set. We're going to get you in touch with Ava, and then Hannah's going to get in touch. And I will send out the slides. I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of those. I'll send it out. I'll send out a replay of this video, and then go and follow. It's at Ava and the Bee. And
Mhm.
she's got Adrienna has so many valuable tips and things that I've taken off of just her Instagram. So, definitely follow. And when I send out the replay, I'll also send out the offer for our discount, because Adrienna is generously giving us a discount on the templates for the year of content blogs as florists. All right. Well, thank you all so much. I've got everybody's email. You guys have a great day, and we'll be in touch soon. Have a good afternoon.